In today's episode, we are interviewing retired Army First Sergeant Allaina Rapps. Allaina joined the Army in 2000 as a combat documentation specialist and ended her career of 22 honorable years as a photographer and videographer for the President and Vice President of the United States. Allaina was also crowned Miss Veteran America in 2013. After retiring, Allaina established her roots in Chipley, Florida, pursuing her Bachelor's of Science in Elementary Education at Florida State University. Additionally, she is an active member of the Chipley and Lynn Haven Garden Clubs, volunteers with Girls Inc. in Panama City Beach, and the Guardian at Litem program. Allaina is married to Jacob Rapps. Together, they have a fun, energetic, loving 4-year-old named Eli. Let's hear her story. In the year 2000, we're recording.
Well, are we?
Yes,
okay,
we are recording.
All right. Well, my name is Allaina Rapps, and why did I join the military? I knew that I wanted better for my life. I grew up in Syracuse, New York, in a not so good family and background, in and out of foster homes, and I knew that I wanted something different. And I knew that I couldn't get that in Syracuse, New York, around what I grew up in. And so I joined the Army to challenge myself, to have bigger and better options for my life. And but I didn't know what I wanted to do in the Army. And the recruiter was like, hey, 17 years old, senior in high school, beginning of my senior year. He's like, well, what are you interested in? I'm like, I don't know. What you got? And he gave me all the jobs. I said, I'm not really interested in all that. He's like, well, we started looking at transcripts. Oh, you took photography. You like photography? Yeah, I like photography. So sign me up as a photographer and videographer. And that starts the journey.
What I think is crazy is even if you look into YouTube podcasts, Spotify podcasts, like all these different podcasts, you have whenever you're speaking to veterans that come on these shows, they're guys that are post 9/11. Yeah. So they're guys that joined after 9/11. They knew that they were going into wartime. They knew that that they were certain. Like for me, I knew that we were at war, and so it was like, yeah, I have been a car salesman. I'm joining the military because I want to go shoot and blow stuff up.
Yeah.
Being a veteran that joins pre 9/11, what was that? What was the military like pre-war? And then how you saw it evolve over 22 years. What was that like?
That's like a loaded question. Okay, so I joined September of 2000.
Literally a year before.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And so my advanced individual training, my AIT, was Fort Meade, Maryland, and then I got stationed in Germany. So I got to Germany in June, July of 2001. And 18 years old in a foreign country, figuring out the Army, being on my own. There was a lot there to understand and to kind of learn and grow. But then as soon as September 11th happened, I remember we got a phone call on our barracks phone, and whoever picks up and said, hey, we're on shutdown, lockdown. We got to get accountability and all that. And then everything changed. We went from, we were photographers, videographers out in the box, we called it. It was Combat Maneuver Training Center back at the time in Hohenfels, Germany. And everything seemed to pause. The training, all the units that would come in to train there.
Was that kind of like JRTC?
Yes,
okay.
But overseas.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's the European version, I guess.
Yeah, the JRTC that most of the guys who I served with, they would go to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Yep.
And that's a pretty horrible place. So, but they had one of those that was in Germany. Is that still there?
It is. It's now called the Joint. Oh gosh, I should have figured this out before I got here, but Joint Multinational Training Center or something like JMRC. Mm-hmm. Same thing, but they just renamed it. So we were training over there. So units would come to the box, we'd call it, and we would basically, as the media, as a photographer, videographer, we'd basically get in, the soldiers' faces and help train them to how to react to media. And we would document their training, show them what they did right, what they did wrong, put videos together for them to help with after-action reviews.
It's kind of like training videos.
We did a lot of that. Yep, we did a lot of that.
Wow. Okay.
And so September 11th happens, And our mission kind of changed. We had to take on more of a guarding. So we would start guarding buildings on base. We had to start pulling duty at checkpoints, checking IDs. And I remember
you were pulling security.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And the Bundeswehr, so the German army, came on base and they would help kind of do some patrolling, not patrolling, but they would do some security for us and stuff like that. So it changed a little bit. And because I was at a non-deployable duty station, because we helped train those that were deploying, we were non-deployable there.
Yeah.
And so for me, that point, I didn't, wasn't training up to go deploy or anything like that. We had to stay there and prepare the other units that were going.
Yeah, I've got a couple of buddies of mine that are like OP4 at Fort Polk, Fort Irwin, and Fort Drum, because I think all of those are JRTC locations, or at least it was when I got out in 2020.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's interesting. So, being that photographer, videographer in that realm, one of my buddies, he is now, he's the one that I just did the podcast with the other day.
Yeah.
He does, what is it called? Public affairs.
Okay. Yep.
So apparently the MOS that you were in no longer exists.
Correct.
And now it's public affairs.
So technically 25 Victor, yes, which is what it was called, 25 Victor Combat Documentation Production Specialist. A very long name, but basically to say photographer, videographer is now morphed into a public affairs job, multimedia specialist. So they have, so all the other branches, they either have their, their photographer, videographer, or they have their or their, what is it called? I'm trying to think of the right word. I can't think of the right word right now, but basically they're, oh my gosh, what we're doing right now. This job.
Interviewing?
Yeah, I can't think of the right word. Holy smokes, man. So, but now it's morphed into one MOS. And so that's kind of what it is.
So it's
now.
almost kind of like a journalist of some sort.
Yes.
Journalist,
that's where we go. Instead of being just a journalist or a photographer, videographer, now you're all of it.
Okay. So 9/11 happens. If you joined as a fuzzy, you were probably PFC?
That was PFC, yeah.
PFC. And so watching that world evolve, and then of course you're in the training environment in Germany. Where was your next duty station from there?
So I left Germany in 2005 and went to Lackland Air Force Base.
Lackland.
In San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah.
As the sole combat cameraman, which, so I worked at Defense Language Institute, English language school. So all the 120 different countries come to the school to learn English, and basically it's above my head, but they come to learn English and they get sent to our sergeant major academies. They get to our pilot schools, first sergeant's courses, all these things. So we basically taught them English, and then they would get sent to different military bases throughout the country. And so a lot of times I was the first person they'd see. We get a lot of Arabic countries, a lot of Asian countries, all over the world, and they come in, they say, who's this girl in uniform telling me what to do? And I'm like, so it was very...
That's kind of interesting, because normally, like, the guys that, especially guys that, I deal with on a, especially still working for the warfighter, a lot of guys will talk about learning Arabic from English.
Yeah.
I never thought about the fact that people would actually need to learn English from Arabic.
Yeah.
And how difficult that probably is. But isn't there's a academy for that out in California?
Yes, that's the foreign language school. So that's for American soldiers to go and learn the foreign language. So
this was the place for foreign. Okay.
Yes. So it's the English language. So Defense Language Institute, English language course, DLI, ELC is what it's called, but DLI, Defense Language Institute, which is also in Monterey, California. Mm-hmm. But also at this school, so it wasn't only foreign students coming in, foreign militaries learning English, it was also our soldiers that would join from Puerto Rico or any other country and get their citizenship, and they would go there for two weeks, I think it was. I can't remember exactly, don't quote me. But they would get their English language training, get their uniforms, have a drill sergeant, PT, and then they'd get sent to basic training. So they had enough English.
So they went to basic training after this. This was like a prerequisite for them to go. Oh, Nice. Is that so? Is that still there? Is that still...
Probably? I'm assuming because we have a lot of troops or soldiers that join, and they have to basically build up their English skills.
And so you were there for how long?
I was there for 2.5 years, and so my job there kind of morphed. The photographer position kind of fell to the side prior to me ever being there, but they still had a billet, so one position for a photographer there. So I basically helped in-process foreign students, and I was there what was the Air Force calls their military training manager, and so they're MTM. And so I'd in-process these students. I'd pick them up from the airport. If they were late to school, I had to go knock on their door and say, hey, MTM, open up, where are you at? And so it was very unique, very interesting. I enjoyed it.
So I assume you leave there as E4, E5?
I left as an E5.
E5.
Yep.
So you got your E5, NCO status, and then where'd you go?
Backtrack real quick. So when I was in Germany, I had some family situations that happened, and I tried to. So then I also interviewed for White House Communications when I was stationed in Germany, and that top secret clearance process could take a very long time.
Yes.
And so I was kind of on hold in Germany, which is why I was there for 4 or 5 years, from 2001 to 2005, so 4 years. And when some things happened with my siblings and they were sent into foster care, I said, I could care less about this job. Take me off hold. I need to be sent back to the States for my siblings. Long story short, I put the White House Communications Agency, WACA, on hold, and I PCS back to the States to try to work on getting custody of my siblings. While I was at Lackland Air Force Base, I got custody of one. And then from there, my clearance picked up again, and I PCS'd and relocated to D.C. in 2007.
So you talked a little bit about the foster care system. I want to hit on that. I want to hit on that after we go through your military career, because I do have some questions about that as well. But okay, so you leave Lackland, you go to
White House Communications.
White House. So you went to the White House from Lackland.
Yes.
And what is a photographer doing at the White House? Seriously.
I know. I have no idea. Military, White House, what is that?
Yeah.
So WACA, White House Communications Agency, is on Naval Anacostia, Naval Base Anacostia. They changed the name now. It's Joint Base Bowling, Bowling Anacostia, whatever, which is in D.C. And so we're based there. But we do all the communications for the principals, president, vice president, first lady, whether it be telecommunications, whether it's phone, it is telecommunications, photography, videography, secure communications, satellite, you name it, anything. So when the president is in the motorcade, he's got to be able to communicate. We help run that. So me specifically, with a photographer, videographer background, I belong to the Visual Information Command. And our job solely was to be the audiovisual engineer for the president. We are the voice of the president. So we can announce him on stage. We set up his audio for him. We set up the podiums. We hang the seal before he comes out on stage. We travel with them. We also, most people are unaware that anywhere the president goes, there is a military videographer with him at all times, no matter what. But he doesn't look like he's in the military because he's wearing a suit. Background is strictly audiovisual engineering. We have to make sure that the principals can communicate no matter where they're at. If they're on Air Force One, if there's an emergency, I got to work there during that time. And then for that, I was a videographer. So I would travel with President Bush, and anytime he'd go to an event, I'd either go there beforehand or I'd go there with him in the motorcade and set up. And I was strictly a videographer. So we'd record him in all of our film, I can call it film, would go to the National Archives. And if the media needed it, if there was something they weren't privy to, if it was closed press or something like that, we would supply that to the media. And then the Obama administration took over, and I also did videography for that mostly. So I traveled Air Force One with the president, or wherever he was at. It does,
That's got to be a surreal moment too, because you were able to see history unfold on a daily basis going to work under multiple presidents.
Yes.
That's cool.
It's very surreal. I still kind of think like, holy hell, did I really do that?
Every single day. So like when you go to work, you got to see, it's one thing when you're a civilian and you watch things on the television and you see everything that comes through. And then I'm also sure that, and I'm not saying that this is a thing, but you were able to kind of decipher and kind of like put away the bullshit to the side, and you're like, that's not, because if you're there every day
and you see what you see, you're literally seeing what
you see on the media, and then you're like, hold on, like.
So,
I saw it when I was, and obviously, like, I never the White House. That's just. I had a buddy that was applying. He was like an S1 guy, and he was applying for some type of position at the White House when I was in. And so, because I got to know S1 pretty well after I got injured, and so I know like the process for him that he didn't get accepted, or he didn't get selected.
It's very hard.
It's a very selective process to even get into any type of job at the White House. So the fact is, you're already, what do they say? Like the military right now, I think it's 0.8%. Of the
like the 1% of the 1%.
And 1% of the 1% is the infantry, and then this right here probably is like 0.2%.
It
gets accepted to the White
and
House.
It's a long process. So if you weren't planning on staying in that long, and then you're 2 years pending a clearance, and then the commitment once you get into the White House, depending on the branch of service you're in, is a 4-year commitment or a 5-year commitment. And so they want to get their money's worth. They think about all the thousands of dollars they spent to get that TSSCI clearance. Yeah, they're gonna get it back from you, which makes sense. So
it's almost amazing that after you retired. Well, hold on. Look, I'm getting the cart in front of the horse. All right. So I saw the picture of you on Air Force One, and so you didn't have to wear a uniform either, and they didn't want you to either. You got to wear like
civvies,
suits,
polos, khakis.
That's really cool. So did you have another duty station after that, or did you retire from that?
No, so I left WACA in 2011 because I had this like urge that how am I going to be a staff sergeant now at this time, an E6 in the Army, and never have been deployed. Okay, so I'm also a single mom at this time because I'm still raising my brother. I was traveling the world, doing all these things, high profile things, but I still felt, how am I going to lead my troops if I've never led from the front in a combat environment, right? And so I said, hey, this is great. My brother's getting older now, but I need to go somewhere deployable. And so I got stationed at Fort Meade, Maryland, which is combat camera.
Yeah.
And they've changed the name now. It's something else, but I think it's public affairs something. But got there, trained up, was supposed to be sent out on some deployment teams, and they decided to take other people that had more experience that were already deployed. And so that was a struggle for me. And we ended up losing on the team that I was supposed to go out on. I was supposed to lead. We lost a troop. And so I wasn't on that team, but I trained with her. I did the build up, all that with her specialist, Hilda Clayton, combat camera troop. Amazing troop. But we lost her, and her shots are famous. If you look them up, I mean, her last images are of Afghani troops loading a mortar, and it exploded, and you can see her shots as it exploded. And not only was she killed, but the troops around, Afghani troops, were also killed. And that is something you'll never forget. But I always think God has a reason for things. Like why wasn't I there? Maybe I would have been different if I was there, but it's not how it works. So I dealt with that and took care of my troops the best that I could. Enjoyed my time at 55th Combat Camera Unit. Did some TDYs. Never got that deployment that I wanted, that I was looking for. And then I volunteered to be a recruiter and got stationed down at Eglin Air Force Base, close to that Crestview in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and found my passion for life, which is young people. mentoring them, inspiring them to be better than what they think they can become. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter, what you have around you. You can aspire to be anything you want. You just have to make the choice. And so I found my passion. I know I'm totally going all over the place here.
No, you're fine.
And did that for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And they wanted me to reclass. They're a great recruiter. People can relate to you. Mm-hmm. But I said, it's too hard, because if you're good at something, they're going to continue to take from you, because recruiting is not easy, but I never felt it as a job, because I loved the Army. Yeah. I still love the Army. I'm not in it anymore, but I believed in it. I think that the military is not for everybody, but you got to put into it something to get something back, but you also have to take care of yourself. And so I can tell you what the Army can offer you. And if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, you got to do something. So inspiring young people, going into high schools, going into colleges, and saying, hey, what's your plan for after high school? Okay, you're going to college? How are you paying for it? Is this are you doing this because your parents? Are you doing this because you want to do it? Like, what's your passion in life? Do you have a goal? What do you want to do? Oh, I don't know what I'm doing when I graduate. Okay, well, let's figure this out. Let's walk this out and see, okay, what options do we have? And so I really felt inspired by being with young people. And fast forward, go back to White House Communications Agency, because where else do you retire?
You went back.
Yeah, where else do you retire from? I'm not going to retire to recruiting. Heck no.
Before you get on that, though, I do want to go back to what you were saying. My uncle, he's a retired SEAL, and I remember one of the things. I was going to join the military right out of high school. I always dealt with a weight issue. Yeah, I was heavy. And so I lost over 125 pounds to join the military.
Wow, good for you. I'm sure that wasn't easy.
Yeah, it was pretty difficult. But
but you did it, which is awesome.
Yeah, I had to change the whole mindset. But I remember going to go see my the first recruiter that I ever went and saw. I was I'd lost a couple pounds. I think it was like 172 pounds. Yeah. Or sorry, 272 pounds.
Were you in high school?
No, I was selling cars. Okay. And I was about 272 pounds. And I went and saw this recruiter. And they kind of blew me off. They were like, "You're never going to lose the weight. You're never going to have it." But so I really had to knuckle down and do what I needed to do, and I did. But I remember one of the best pieces of advice that my uncle gave me, and he said, "You're either going to use the military, or the military is going to use you, and you are going to be giving them your body, your mind, your soul for the next 3.5
blood, sweat, tears.
Years."
Yeah.
And so within that time period, you better be getting something back out of it.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
And I went the opposite direction, because I had sat behind a desk for so long, and I didn't want to sit behind a desk, and I didn't want to learn a skill. It was like, no, I already know what I'm good at. I'm good at selling. I can always come back out into the real world and do it. Yeah. The military destroyed me enough to where I could never do sales ever again. Because I'm just too I'm too blunt, too honest, and straightforward and to the point. Before that. That mindset that changes, when I was in sales, I was pretty much a bullshitter, and very shady.
Are you still a bullshitter?
No.
Okay.
No.
I know. I'm just kidding. Kidding.
Yeah. Most of the guys that know me now, that actually know me, who I am since I've came back from, military life, they're like, dude, you're a completely different person.
It changes you.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Because before, because I hated who I was, and I destroyed who that person was at Fort Benning. Yeah,
that's amazing. What made you see who you could become and what you're capable of?
But for some of the listeners that don't know, and it is one of those, I want to hit back. I know you got kind of emotional about something, and
it's okay.
I don't want, but I do want to go back to something that you had said, where it was like, there is a struggle in the military right now. So I am one of my really good friends. I talk to him monthly now, but he was my platoon sergeant. Oh. He was my platoon sergeant when I was in. He's an E6. He just got out of recruitment duty.
Yeah.
But
he survived. That's good. You made it out.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah. So, and being a recruiter and being in the infantry, I think it was a completely different style of life because, he's used to PTing every day. He's used to rucking, running, shooting and everything. And then you go to recruitment life and you're like, what am I doing?
You're sitting.
Yeah.
And you're talking all day.
Talking to people.
Yeah. Some people are cursing you out,
But something that several conversations that we have had is, he's an E6 with no deployments.
Yeah.
And being in the infantry, one of I was just trying to have this conversation with my brother the other day. He was a 19 Delta, and he had made a comment where I was like, man, dude, coming out of the infantry without a CIB or without a combat deployment sucks. And he's like, well, I'm mainly focused on the schools that you went to. And it's like, there are different MOSs that look at things completely different. Right. But I know the infantry is like, if you didn't get your CIB, you didn't do anything.
Yes. Yeah.
If you didn't get your combat patch, you didn't do anything.
Right.
But then you look around and someone like you who came out of this long career, being there to mentor that person before they went to combat means more.
Yes.
And the fact that you were able to take that story and you were able to tell other people about it and inspire other people about whatever it may be from who you knew. But it is kind of funny to see that stigma that goes on in the military where guys look down on guys for not having deployments. Yeah. Or people like that. And then you come out of the civilian world and you just screw any civilian that ever tries to be like, oh, you never, I dealt with this through my campaign. Oh my God. I had people.
Oh, don't you love that? They're gonna find whatever.
Dude. Well, not just that. It's like, who the hell are you to judge me?
Yeah. What have you done? What have you done?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like there was a lady that used to come to pretty much all my events. She was a supporter of mine, but wanted to sit there and say to me at one of the events, it was like, "Oh, you never deployed?" And I was like, "No."
What's your expertise?
Not with the military. I never deployed. After I got out of the military. I've had a couple of jobs which has required me to go overseas. Yeah. But when I was in, no, I never did. And so it was just kind of like, it was like, oh. And it's like,
who are you?
Lady, first of all, do you know what I did do you know what I learned how to do?
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, like you said, your mindset, because you joined after September 11th, so you had a thought process, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's hard, right? It doesn't matter which way you look at it.
People that join during wartime have a completely different, or people, now you stayed in, and a lot of people jumped out, and I know you saw that, after 9/11, people jumped out.
Well, there was some people that were deploying back to back to back, and you see only what you see on the news, which is not the truth. And so that is a struggle. In our own military mentality, they train you to be the best of the best, to go into the fight, to not be afraid, because what kind of military would be if we weren't ready to go into the fight, right? You don't want to run and hide, like, we're not wimps, we're not, leave that one out. And so personally, like I struggled with that. It's like, how am I going to lead from the front? But I'm sure you can relate to this. In my 22 years of service, deployments have nothing to do with leadership potential. Nothing. You can be put in so many different situations that are life or death, whatever. But I've seen some of the shittiest
leaders,
NCOs, leaders that have deployed multiple times, but couldn't take care of their troops at home. People are committing suicide. What are you doing to take care of these people? Yeah. You want it for glory? Oh yeah, you deployed, you got that patch. But what else do you got? You got nothing. You have no integrity. You have no courage, right? You have no intestinal fortitude. What do you have? You're not taking care of your family. You're not taking care of your troops. You're not making your unit better or your community. What are you doing?
Well, it's the unpopular idea that, just like outside of the military, you have pieces of shit that are inside the military. Just
everywhere.
Like you have them that are outside. Because there are guys, that would come back. I mean, I knew several, it's like, there's nothing wrong with looking at somebody and saying, hey, listen, I appreciate your service to this country. I appreciate that, you got blown up in a Humvee. You come back with a Purple Heart. You got your blue cord, your special forces, airborne, whatever. But dude, you beat your wife and you're an alcoholic and your kids hate you. You're kind of a piece of shit. And it's like, you could sit there and say, hey, I appreciate what you did, but as a person. Yeah. And then it's like, on the civilian side of stuff, people are like, oh my God, how'd you? First of all, I'm a veteran. So I know that on the inside of that organization, you have just as many people. And then you have the one E5, E6, NCO that, you know, has a relationship with God, or just has this desire to want to lead, and then just never gets to that unit and gets that opportunity.
The right time, the right
to
place.
be able to lead. And it's like, well, is that person more soft? With that person, I believe that any of the guys that I served with in the 101st, excluding a couple, would have done their job under fire, whether or not, you know, it would have been any of these other guys that go to war and come back. I think that anybody, and again, anybody who joins during wartime, they already had it in their mind that their number was going to come up and that they were going to have to go do something.
For the most part.
Yeah.
I will say that, for the most part.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the MOS.
Well, and as a recruiter, though, you get people from all walks of life that are coming in for whatever reasons, whether they're running away from something, whether they need to support their family and they just can't find a good paying job on the outside, or whether they just got done with a 4-year degree and are now in debt $40,000 to $60,000 because, hey, they got this degree, but they can't get a job because they've got no experience. They just have a piece of paper that says, hey, I got this degree, but now I need to pay my bills. And so they'd come in trying to join the military, and half the time, people with bachelor's degrees or any kind of degree at all, they can't even pass the ASVAB. So it's like...
Yeah. I know that.
And so...
Well, hitting on that, though, you know, that's what inspired me to join the Army. I actually was one of those guys who was running away.
Yeah.
I was running away. I didn't want to be... First of all, because I've made this comment several times, especially about Panama City and Bay County. When I left that Bay County line and I looked at that Bay County sign, I was in that bus headed to Montgomery for MEPS.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm never coming back home. I'm never coming back there. The only thing that it's good for is trouble, getting arrested. Yeah, because I got arrested.
How old were you when you left?
27.
Oh, wow. So you were well established.
Dude.
Yeah.
You want to talk about you want to talk about humbling yourself? Getting to my first unit? Dude, when I got to Fort Campbell, my team leader was a new pinned E5 coming down from Alaska.
It was like 22 years old.
He just turned 21.
Oh.
He had joined when he was like 17. Totally. And I'm having to, because Nia and I had just got married.
Yeah.
And we had to come back to Panama City to get all of like my furniture and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there going, I need you to write up a financial plan of how you're going to make this happen. And it's like, dude, I'm 27 years old. I've ran companies. I was the general manager of a couple places. I've been responsible for millions of dollars worth of equipment through equipment rental company. I've sold cars for the past. I can drink. I'm answering to you. And then, and you know, I made it clear I wasn't very well liked when I was there anyway, because being somebody that came from the athletic background that I had of endurance sports and stuff like that, I was very proud of that.
Yeah,
and so
as you should
a
be.
lot of these guys were like 27 years old. He's in better shape than we are. He can outrun us. He can. I grew up hunting, so obviously I'm a better shot than anybody that's around. So then it was always like, and in the infantry, I mean, those are the things that you should pride yourself on being. Mm-hmm. When you're like 21, 22, that's great. When you're 27 and you're a PFC, then it's like, man,
who is this guy?
Yeah, get out of here. And so, well, they used to think that, dude. So that's a joke too. They used to think that I was in CID.
Oh, really?
They thought that I was a CID guy because I was I was so old and I was pretending. Thought, 27.
Yeah,
27.
This old man over here.
Well, my first sergeant was like, well, no, my sergeant first class platoon sergeant at the time, I think was like 27. He was like the same age as me.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming in, I'm like, yeah, I'm a PFC. And it's like, CID sent you here. Like, you are. Yeah. And it was like, no, I'm literally joining in. Yeah. They were always trying to like,
that's fine. You should have played along with it, did you?
I should.
You should
kind of a little bit. A couple of occasions. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, whenever you're hitting that area of your career, especially for you getting into that NCO status and not having a deployment right now in the military, that's something that's kind of like looked down on. But what I have seen is some of the best leadership that I had when I was in the Army were guys that hadn't been to combat, and guys that hadn't seen a deployment, and guys that their ability and desire to lead wasn't for personal satisfaction.
Yeah.
It literally was
personal.
for the bettering of the people that were around them, because they understood it was a team effort.
Yeah.
You don't win wars on individual levels. You win wars on team efforts. Yep. So
yeah, there's different mentalities.
You hit me when you were talking about it. And I was like, yeah, I understand all of this.
yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. And I, towards the end of my career, I had a lot of younger troops that I would mentor as the first sergeant that, were contemplating getting out or staying in. And they're like, how do I go back to the regular Army if I've been here at this unit for so long? And now, I'm going to get with my peers that are now E5s, E6s, and I don't have that deployment. But the military is different now. I mean, we're not engaged like we were. We weren't, pushed, so far where we're all overseas and just fighting the fight. And so I think it ebbs and flows. And I think, who knows what the future holds. And so as long as we're trained and we're good, but I was getting somewhere with it. I don't remember where it was. But
So you come to Florida now.
Yes.
And you're
as a recruiter. Yeah.
Okay. And you did that for 2 years?
Yeah, I think it was a little over 2 years. Yeah, I did that while also at that same time, I had just won Miss Veteran America, and so I was also traveling for that and being the national spokesperson for women veterans, and so that kind of helped also with that platform, because most people look at, not I'm going to say most, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of people that don't have exposure to the military or don't know, have never served, they assume that, if you join the military, specifically the Army, you're going to die. You're going to go kill people and you're going to die. And so I loved having a story where I could share with them, listen, I'm a combat photographer. Guess how many times I deployed? Guess how many times I've been overseas? 0. None. Yeah. And if I was overseas, it was in 5-star hotels with the President of the United States. Yeah. And so I loved sharing that. She's like, wait a minute, you did that and you did that. And yeah, I did. And I never deployed. So you're saying all of us baby killers or us, we go out and do these things. That's not true. That's what the media likes you to believe. Yeah. And so people kind of resonated with that, and at the right place, right time, depending on where you're at, your MOS, your job that you have, and all that. So,
yeah. Okay, so after Florida, 2.5 years, what, E6, E7?
I left recruiting as a sergeant first class in E7.
Okay, and then you went to the White House.
Went back to the White House. Yep.
And that was under who? That was under
that was the last. So that was. I'm trying to get my years right.
The last little bit of Obama.
That was in 2016. I went back to DC, and that was the end of the Obama administration and the beginning of the Trump administration, and so got to work all through that, and then I retired under the Biden administration.
And then when did you meet your husband in there?
2000. He's gonna kill me. 18.
2018?
Yeah.
Okay. And how did you guys meet?
So I was in DC and I was missing Florida so much because, man, once you come to the Gulf Coast, it's like, it's a thing. Like, how can you not be hooked? This is just a beautiful spot. And so I was missing Florida and I said, I need to go back to Florida and visit my friends. And so it was supposed to be a girls' weekend.
That's kind of famous, famous words right there.
So girls' weekend on the beach in Miramar, Florida, or Miramar Beach, Florida. And my friend's like, I got this guy. He's real cool. You're going to love him. He's funny. I was like, nah. I don't want any guys around. Just girls. We're just going to hang out and have fun. Long story short, he came and here we are. We're married now. We have a child and I love him. And so it was awesome. I am thankful, though, that we met later on in my career and his career, because as you are familiar with, having a family, whether you're, a male or a female in the Army, you almost have to make a choice, because you can't put the Army first all the time. You can't put your family first all the time. One's going to suffer, and you try to negotiate that and kind of go through the seasons of what's, but you can't really. So one's going to suffer, or both are going to suffer. Yeah. And so being able to, for the most part, be a single person, other than the time I raised my brother, I was able to focus on my career, which, as a woman, if you're having children, you're out of the game for a bit and kind of puts you behind the power curve there. And so I had my son later on in my career. And so I think if it was any other way around, I don't know if I would have stayed in as long. So, yeah.
You watch that happen a lot. I know that was one of the contributing, other than my injury, I fought to stay in as much as I could. And then it was like, didn't matter what I did. It's like, nope, you're still a liability.
Yeah, it's hard.
Well, because I got to have like 2 fusions done. And then it was like, oh, if I get this surgery, you'll let me stay in. And they're like, oh, no, because the recovery on your spine
and then it gets
over
worse.
A year. Yeah.
I had back surgery.
Yeah. And so they sat there and they were just like, no, got to med board you. You're leaving. And then that's the reason why, even when I got out, you can ask Nia, I became like this wreck.
Yeah.
Because
it's hard.
It was like, I had so many dreams of accomplishing things while I was in the military, of things that I wanted to do. And then when I got out, the first thing that I immediately went to was contracting and like, I'm going overseas. I'm going to go do what, I've always wanted to do. And it was like, because the fight never comes out of the dog once you, want to do something. No. Okay. Yeah. So the choosing the family aspect, after we had Scarlett, that was one of the many things that I was able to say that kind of helped me transition, because then it was like coming back home, if I wouldn't have had my daughter and my spouse, and like my dreams would have been shattered without them.
Yeah. What are you doing it for if you're not
I don't know. I don't know where I would. I don't think I'd be sitting here having the conversation with you today.
Yeah.
The fact that your family gets you through those rough times and through that, but it can also weaken your drive for something that is kind of takes precedence on, because once you have your son or your daughter or whatever kids, and then you're in the military, and then you look at these deployments, or going to Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever, and then you're like, oh, I've missed out on all these years of my kid's life. Was it worth you missing birthdays, soccer games, barbecues, and all that? Was it worth missing your daughter's prom? Was it worth missing your son's first words, first steps,
their games, all those things?
And so a lot of guys are like, oh, I was doing it for the better of the country, but I think you remember something they used to say in the Army all the time: the Army moves on with or without you. There are so many guys, and I think this is the reason why, those guys, you go to the bar and you talk to them, and the only thing they do is talk about their military experience. They have nothing else to talk about. It's like that's the only thing they want to talk about all the time. And the reason why it's the only thing that they have to talk about is because those were the only times in their life where they felt like a man. Felt like they were needed. But the thing about it is what's crazy that these guys don't understand, or something that just doesn't click in their mind, is that you were just a number. There's no such thing as Superman. The Army was going to move with or without you. So when you have your kids and you have those things, being able to understand what's important. And a lot of these guys, they really do think that they are like, if I'm not in the Army, if I'm not going overseas, then we're going to fail as a country. And it's like, no, because there's a 17-year-old that is joining every 7 seconds. True.
And I always try to think of like, there's different ways to look at things. And I so agree with that, because it could be completely one-sided where they think, the world doesn't move unless it's around me. The unit can't go on if I'm, and everything's got to revolve around, don't make a decision without me. But you want your troops to make decisions. You want them to be responsible, have a good decision-making process in their head. Like, how do we solve these problems? Because at the end of the day, you're going to be gone. You're going to leave, and you want to train them up to be better than you. So I think they train us to be that way because we have to be an alpha. You got to be an alpha. I mean, I guess you don't have to be an alpha.
No, you pretty much, to be successful, you're going to have to be.
Yes. I think there's a certain type of mindset you have to be driven, do all those things. And what you said about the guy at the bar that always talks about his achievements in the military, this and military that, and that's great because he feels significant, because he's done significant things, and it's relevant to his life. And it's everything he does. Well, he walks, sleeps, eats, PTs, everything in the military, right? But that's also the problem, because if you don't have anything outside of that, when you get out, that's why you have a lot of troops that struggle because they lose that that military network, the community, what they've known for however many years, even as simple as retiring and figuring out health insurance. Holy smokes, man. Why has it got to be so damn difficult? Like, you take things for granted because they make it simple, because you have to. You can't have a well-machined or a well-oiled machine function if you constantly have to make up things. Like the Army, the military is a machine, and you got to, the machine has to keep going. Yeah. And so people are going to come in, people are going to come out, but you got to think of it, I think, in a different way, where it's like, okay, I'm going to be the best that I can be in the Army. Yeah. That's the song, right? But what are you doing outside of that to take care of yourself? Are you going to school? Are you getting all the medical stuff that you could possibly have? Like, I got laser eye surgery in the Army. I had braces in the Army. I mean, I've had all kinds of opportunities. I've traveled to over 40 different countries. Like, I've seen the world. Yeah. Like, so.
Well, I think it's funny because a lot of people have that misconception of like, oh, the military, you don't get paid very much. And I was thinking to myself, being a PFC, being married and having a daughter, first of all, I didn't pay for either one of my kids to be born.
Yes, the hospital bill alone. Dude, holy smokes,
that right
man.
there didn't have to. I always got like housing allowance, food allowance.
You didn't have to buy new clothes every day because they supplied them to you.
Yeah. There was a lot of. The military actually pays pretty well when you do everything and you put everything
medical,
together.
dental, education, training. You have a skill.
And a lot of these guys don't understand it until they get out. You were just talking about how everything's so complicated. We were talking about this before we started, shooting earlier, and it's the fact of, it's like going to go get your lights turned on to your new apartment. And like these guys, they get out of the military and they've always lived in the barracks. And before they lived in the barracks, they were living at home with mommy and daddy. Yeah. And they've been in the military for 10, 12 years. And they're like, I just want to get out. I want to go do something. I'm going to become a welder.
Interviewing for a job. They never had an interview. For a job.
All of that. And then that TAP program that the Army puts you through, it could be better. But, these things, the military, like you said, it's a well-oiled machine and you are just a bolt. A part of that machine to make it work, and when you come out you realize that you are only just a number, and then talk about accomplishments versus family. I mean, one of the greatest accomplishments that I think I did when obviously I went to attended airborne school, and then like my blue cord, my cross rifles, there's one thing that those things will never be able to do, and they're never going to be able to look at me and say I love you, Daddy. And so being able to understand.
Thank you for being there for me.
Yeah, exactly. And so being able to do that. And so, okay, so you waited till later on in your career to really like have a family because you knew that that's kind of like the next chapter in your life, which is actually really cool. How old were you when you retired?
2021? Is that when I retired?
2022.
2022, sorry. April 2022. Yeah, there you go. It all kind of blends. After COVID, I feel like everything is like merged together. So I'm 42 now, so that was what, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? So 40, 39, 40, I think it was, just about 40.
Yeah. Do you know how cool that is? Because
well, Joe and I was 17, so
so like my parents, and then a lot of people that are out there, I mean, being able to retire at that age, dude, and then you're coming out, you've got your retirement, now you've got your son, you've got your family, and it's like, you're able to, obviously you're still working.
Yeah, well, I'm going to school now to get another degree in elementary education because I got to be around these kids, man. They need some guidance.
But you're able to enjoy the pleasures of life that a lot of people aren't able to do at that age because 39, 40, that's still young. Yeah. I say that.
Oh, not when you wake up though.
Yeah. Okay. So, I got a question for you. Why someone like you that was working for the White House like that and were doing the details that you did, was there a civilian job that you could have taken and stayed on board once you retired? Mm-hmm. Why didn't you?
Well, you want the short answer or the long answer?
We got plenty of time, but
family.
Yeah.
family first. I wanted to commit, as a first sergeant, I had, 100 plus troops to take care of.
Yeah.
And phone calls all the time, weekends, weeknights, traveling. Yeah. And so family first. Yeah. I wanted to be a wife. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to be present in my little boy's life. I wanted to learn how to garden. Like, I've never cared about that, but I'm like, I got time. I'm going to be settling somewhere more than 4 years at a time. I could take care of a yard. I don't know. And then I am not the kind of person that, like you said, the military changed you, right? And you are going to say what's on your mind because you feel like it's the right thing to do. Like, you got to say it. Like, and so for me,
and it's also like a rebellion thing because nobody can tell me what I can or can't say anymore. So now when I have conversations with people, it's like, hey, listen, for 3 years of my life, I had to sit there and shut up and had to take pro, and you don't own me anymore, so I'm going to say what I want to say. But
and I think being in the environment that I was in is different, different MOSs, different careers, different paths, but being in an environment where I was dealing with the people and the organizations, and just I had to be very mindful of my actions and what I would post, and just driving to work in DC sucks like real bad. I mean, who wants to sit what should be a 45-minute commute with no traffic turns into an hour and a half one way. And people do this daily, and they be in their cars for 3 hours, and they wonder why everybody hates you put on your blinker because you want to say, hey, like, somebody let me in.
You're starting to sound like me, just driving on an everyday basis.
Well, you put on your blinker because you want someone to give you a space. No, you know what that blinker signifies? Speed the hell up. They're not letting you in. And so then you become road rage, and by the time you get to work, your hair's crazy, you got blood, your blood is pumped through your veins like ready to burst, and you haven't even had your coffee yet. And so it's like, I don't want that life.
That's one of those that the VA will sit there and they give you those questionnaires.
I'm already getting
when you show up and they give you one of these questionnaires, and they're like, how many drinks do you have per week or per month or whatever on like, and so like I'll answer
the ones I remember or the ones I
exactly, and then you see your primary care physician at the VA, and then they're like, hey, it says here that you drink 4 out of the 7 days of the week. Is everything okay? Is there anything that's wrong with you? It's like, I drove to work. I drove here. But that right there alone.
Yes, I didn't kill people. I didn't kill people. I just,
I did a really, really good job, of not going to prison.
Inside. So it's a thing. And so I just, I'll just say family, and I wanted a slower pace of life.
Yeah.
I wanted to enjoy what I have left. I'm just going to work and never enjoy the fruits of my labor. Like, why?
Well, I think a lot of people don't understand, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, and it's a little bit counterintuitive to what I was saying too, but it all plays a role, and it's part of the equation. You're saying 17 years old, you went in the Army. When you're in the military, every aspect of your life is pretty much dictated and it's decided for. So since the age of 17, part of your identity is the United States Army. And so because they own you, you're owned by the taxpayer, and you're right place, right time, right uniform everywhere. And then you don't, you're yellow on dental. Go to dental. You're yellow on I'm
having flashbacks. Please
don't. But it's like so everything is so organized, and it's go do this, go here, and hold on. Let me rephrase that. Go here, go wait, then do that, then go here, go wait, then get that done, and then go here, go wait, and then so you do that since you're 17 years old. I fucking get it. Like, it's time to say, all right, it's me time now. Because for the past 22 years, everything has been about the taxpayer and protecting our nation, and now I want to take care of my kid, be with my husband, learn how to grow potatoes.
And so, I have grow potatoes. I'm not there yet. I'm trying to figure out how to have a tomato, like just a tomato. It's so hard. Why is it going to be so difficult to grow a damn tomato? But anyway. So, but I do want to say, while I agree with what you're saying, I also disagree, because I think, we're going back to the whole mindset. And its approach, and it's easier said than done, but and I think as a junior enlisted soldier, more the do what I say, when I say it, how I say it, when I say it,
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. And maybe I'm so far from that just
Yeah.
because of being in so long.
Roger that first one.
But I try to think about everything as a choice.
Yeah.
So granted, yes, you got to be at PT formation. Okay. And if you don't, because you have a choice to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
If you don't get up, there's repercussions, there's consequences, right? So as I'm telling my little boy, like everything in life is a choice.
Yeah.
You can make a good choice, bad choice. You can decide to behave and do the right thing, as I tell him, or you decide not to. So I want to choose to put myself out there to try these hard jobs. Like I was the equal opportunity representative for my agency. Holy smokes! You want to talk about pressure for an agency? Being the EO rep, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. Number one, I got to shut my mouth. I can't talk, right? No, but it's a huge responsibility. But I knew if I wanted to excel, if I wanted to be in these different positions, I needed to put myself in uncomfortable positions and try and to grow, right?
Yeah.
And so I had a choice: try out for these jobs, apply for, or compete, NCO of the year, or all these things. So doing these things gave me these opportunities. So if I didn't do those things, if I just decided to settle and just do the bare minimum, to get by, then I might look at things a little bit differently. But everything, I think, is a choice. Maybe I'm just, crazily optimistic about stuff, or maybe it's the childhood where I, raised in crap. And like, I don't want that. So I'm going to choose to be better than that. But they are going to tell you what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And it also depends on your leadership.
I think it depends on the job.
Yes. Oh, yes. Because when you're out in the field sucking, it's different.
I've had conversations with guys who, had different MOSs. Like the infantry is just so. Well, first of all, it's so in branch.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know that until I got out. They actually have the branch of the infantry. I was like, because some of my paperwork when I was going through TAP and all that, and some of this is like coming. But anyway, regardless. The mindset's completely different because when you're in the infantry,
it is a different animal.
It's kind of like I hate using the word brainwashed, but in a way, you kind of are maybe rewiring of the brain.
Well, you have to kind of corral people into one common goal, right? Because you can't have everybody doing willy nilly. I mean, think about the greater good. Like, what is the intent of what we're trying to do here?
It's like some of these guys that are coming out of the military now, and they'll talk about hazing.
Yeah.
And stuff that they had to do or whatever. And then, like, I'll hear their stories and I'm like,
where were you at? Yeah.
Bro, wait, what? And then they're like, well, I'm like, what was your MOS? Like 42 Alpha? I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. You think that's hazing. So where I come from.
Like, that's cute. No.
He made you do push-ups. He made you low crawl across a parking lot or whatever. And it's like, dude, in the infantry, you're yelled at. You were talking about earlier being the senior enlisted versus the younger enlisted, junior enlisted. Yeah, because I came out as an E4. Yeah. And so coming out as a E4, I mean, even to almost up until the day that I got out, it was nothing to be called like 6 or 7 expletives, right after, right.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate.
It's just kind of like, well, not really. I mean, there's also something you can pride yourself on that, on being like, hey, we are the grunts. We are the guys. So if you're used to having that type of atmosphere when you do have to go somewhere that's really, really shitty.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. My leadership, when they went to the field, they became completely different people. Yeah. Like, what I mean by that is, in garrison, they treated you like shit. But then you'd go to the field and you were brothers. Yeah. You got treated like you were one of the boys. It's like the football team comes together and everybody.
That brotherhood, that's something you'll never ever replicate out here.
Yeah. But then as soon as you go back to garrison, life sucks again. Yeah. And so it's like, so you're putting on this facade dog and pony show when you're in garrison, 101st. Gotta look professional, act professional. Everybody's treated to like this high standard.
What do you mean I gotta tuck in my shirt? Yeah. What do you mean I gotta put on a hat?
Oh, well. and then you go to the field and then it's like your NCOs are like, yeah, boy, we're here. And it's like, who are you? What are you doing? Yeah. Like, you just got done back at garrison, treat me this way, and now you're treating me like this out here. And it's like, dude, come on, man. This is part of the army. This is part of the. You're in the infantry.
Playing the game.
And we're having a good time. Like, I enjoyed. I know that some of my buddies that are going to listen to this are going to laugh, but it's like I enjoyed every ruck. I enjoyed every run. I enjoyed. I hated range days, especially in the winter. And I enjoyed going to the field, but yeah, man, it's one of those things. But yeah, other guys that I hear from different MOSs, it's like, yeah, no.
Yeah, it's different. You were right.
Life was not like that for me. Like, because where we were getting ready to go, you know, the guy that you were getting along with and, you know, having these foot races with and, you know, wrestling around in the dirt with is the same guy that you might be putting a flag over his casket. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, that's another part of that that's kind of, fortunately, I never really had to deal with that aspect with anybody that I only have one person that I knew that lost his life overseas, but and he was somebody that I didn't even serve with at my unit. Yeah, he served at a completely different duty station. It was somebody that I went through basic with. But then, you know, plus it was a weird time. 2017, 2018, nothing really was going on. Yeah, we were kind of winding things down, and so, you know, my unit went to Ukraine before it was cool. But okay, so let's talk about that real quick. Okay, so. Were you were adopted? You were in the foster care system?
So I was in and out of foster homes throughout my childhood, and then at the age 15, I was adopted by my best friend's parents.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. They were amazing. Thank God for them.
Yeah.
I'm still in touch. That's when I go home to New York. That's who I go to. That is my home.
Yeah, yeah. So you say that you were in and out of foster care. Yep. Were like, obviously you see movies and stuff like that. What is that even like? What are first of all, foster homes as a whole? Like, I've heard stories. Like, some foster care parents are all about the money. They want to, but I don't think they receive that much money. But they might. But I do know, because I grew up with a couple of people that I knew of that were part of the foster care system, and they would always kind of like talk about, especially in the high school years. Yeah, it was always like, oh, they're just getting this money, and, you know, they don't care about me, they don't whatever. Is that is that like a true outlook of how that is, or?
I think it depends on. So I can't speak on the pay portion of it. I do not believe it's that much at all. Yeah. But they do get money to support the children, right? In my experience in the foster homes I was in from age 11, so my first foster home, oldest of 5 kids. I was oldest of 5 kids. I was 11, and it was a great experience. I'm still friends with these foster parents and the kids that were in that home, and it was a life-changing experience for me, because I got to see what it's like to live in a family unit with food, with clean clothes, with, you know, showers, you know, all those things that are normal parts of life. And so for me, and we had chores. Now, some people are like, oh, it's bad, but we lived on a farm. They had a boarding house for horses. And so I got to be around animals. I was out of the city. I was in the country. And so it was quiet at night. I remember I was like, oh my gosh, how do I sleep when there's no sirens? Like, but to be around the animals and to be a part of a family and to celebrate birthdays and things like that, normal things that we take for granted, I got to experience. And then, you know, different foster homes, different group homes, not all created equal. Yeah. Go back home, bad situation, we get taken away again into other foster homes. And through my one long-term foster home that we were in for a year, I got to meet my best friend. In 9th grade, I met her, Jessica. And so I got connected with her family. They got connected with mine. And long story short, in 10th grade, they asked my mom, can we take your daughter in? And I won't get into that whole story, but long story short, they took custody of me in my 10th grade year of high school and showed me what it's like to have rules, you know, to respect myself. And they
showed you love,
and they showed me who God was. You know, I never really was introduced to that really prior to that, and I always kind of knew there was somebody watching over me. I kind of felt that as a child, but I didn't know what. Yeah. And so, you know, a lot of different things. Of course, you know, still as a teenager, you rebel and you think you know better. Of course, what teenager doesn't think they know better, right? And and so they're great.
So and I kind of I kind of put parts together. So being 11, do you think, mainly because most of the people that have successful careers once they get out of high school, whether it be through the military or through any other aspect, they normally are people that come from pretty different backgrounds, harsh, ways of growing up. Do you believe that played a role, especially in your
like in my success?
Yeah,
in the military,
success, because you're very, very successful. Becoming a first sergeant in the Army, obviously, even working. You look at you ended up working at the White House. That's huge. And you look at see where you started. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I believe there probably is studies out there that show that the more successful somebody is, you look at their past and you see where people come from, and you're like, whoa, okay, it's almost kind of like one of those, not saying that people join military or people become successful later on in life because of their background, because they're running from something, but I think it's more like running towards something that's greater than how they were brought up, or running to the life that you want, and the life that that you were meant to have. But do you believe that your past played a role in how you were kind of driven into those areas? Because I believe that for me it was like joining the military. It was like, oh, if I don't have the military and I go back home, I'm a car salesman, RV salesman, funeral plot salesman, and I'm serious. I sold funeral arrangements and stuff like that. So it was like I have to be successful here, because I don't want to go back to that lifestyle. So I'll go back to, do you think that your past is what drove you to be as successful as you were?
I think that, yes, that's part of it. I think there's a nature versus nurture, right? So like some of it's environmental, some of it's, genetic. I think that some people are more resilient than others. Some people fold under pressure. Some people are determined to be better than what they know is around them. And so that's a very hard question to answer, but I feel at the core of me, I always wanted something, even as a child, in those dark moments of, abuse or whatever, you're sitting there crying, you're thinking, man, there's got to be more to this as a child. And, you have your little daydreams of what you think. As a little girl, I would think, man, when I'd be in those moments of to myself, or just locked away from the rest of the family, I'd think white picket fence, house, kids, sunshine, rainbows. That was all in my little head as a little child. That's all I thought of, but I wanted better. I wanted something different, but I didn't know what the heck that was. And then, experiences and exposure, I take it all in. You can take the good, you can take the bad, you can focus on the bad only, or you can take in and choose what you want to focus on. And so I chose, hey, I want something better than this. I got to get the heck away from this. I didn't want to be around the negativity and the constantly blaming for, my mother's life, her childhood. Yeah, it was crappy, but you know what? You have a life now. What are you going to do with that?
Yeah.
And so there was more to what I was going to say, but I think having the personality that I have and wanting to do better and to be what is this life if we're not going to achieve something in it? What are we giving? What are we doing to give? What are we putting out there? You know what I mean? And so there's a whole bunch I could say on it, but that's why I feel compelled. When I talk to young people, it doesn't matter where you came from. Yeah. Some people say, oh, well, this person wasn't, they're having a good upbringing. They were raised in poverty. Yeah. So was I.
Yeah.
But I had a choice. I could either hang out with the wrong crowd and continue that, make those bad choices, do those things. Or I could say, you know what? I'm going to start putting myself around other people that are making better choices and doing other things. And like I said, making those hard choices, those difficult things, running for Miss Veteran America. I had never done a beauty pageant. I wasn't that kind of girl. But I knew that the greater good for it was supporting homeless female veterans. And my mother had dealing with the homelessness and just different things around that. I said, man, this is something I feel passionate about. And so I'm going to go into it with my heart. And then I won. And so it's kind of like, the different positions, different opportunities. Working at the White House, I never thought someone like me, girl in foster care, could do that. But I did because I chose to apply. Yeah. And so,
I think you see it a lot. There's a lot of people that sit there and they try to blame where they're at on life for their misfortunes in life. So you have people that are able to, and you learn this in the military, you're able to rise and overcome situations, or you're just going to let it fester and devour you. Yeah. And so, and it's hard to see when it happens, because I have some friends, that I was, known my whole life, and, I look and see what kind of like where they're at in life. Yeah. And I sit there and I'm like, dude, you're still, dude, man, what's going on? It's like, man, dad walked out on me, that, it's like, when are you going to take responsibility for yourself and stop consistently blaming life's problems on your past? Yeah. Because there's plenty of things. This is the United States of America. There's plenty of opportunity there.
There is. You just have to seek it out. You can't wait for it to fall on your lap.
Yeah, I can't.
It's not going to come.
There's only a certain amount of empathy that you're going to get from me.
Right.
Where I'm going to.
You have to make it happen.
When I see somebody struggling and they're trying, then that's one thing. Right. When I see somebody that just doesn't give a shit and they just keep doing the same damn thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result.
Exactly. Is that the definition of insanity?
Yeah. So and not to mention winning Miss Veteran America and stuff like that, and working at the White House, retiring from the Army as one of the highest ranks that you can receive as an enlisted person. Seeing young women struggle to try to keep up with whatever dreams that they have, and then fall and then just kind of give up. Having a voice like you to come in and be like, hey, listen, life's not over. It takes, first of all, it takes time, it takes discipline, and you're able to be one of those voices and to be a role model. Here's the thing. I'm never going to be able to be a role model for anybody but my kids. But someone like you.
You never know that.
Well, yeah.
You never know that.
Maybe.
You might be talking to somebody right now that's inspired.
But what's cool about it is that you, like, you're the second, you're kind of like you're the third episode now. And so both of the people that I've had on so far have been people that have such inspiring stories. And the most thing that anybody with a background like you that has is there's this, don't just give up. Don't start feeling sorry for yourself. Actually go for what it is that you're wanting to go for. And then, you know what? If it doesn't work out, there's other options.
Then it wasn't meant to be.
Other roads. So one of the things that I saw in your bio was the Litem?
Oh, Guardian Ad Litem program.
Okay.
Yes.
I started to look into this.
Yeah.
I don't have a full understanding of it. Explain it.
Okay. And so the Guardian Ad Litem program is a volunteer program throughout the state of Florida. And you go through all this, once you apply, you go through all this training, you get fingerprinted, background search and all that. And I had to go through an interview. There's two options. So you could be a mentor. You could be a mentor to a youth that's age 16 and on up, and they're going to age out of the foster care system. And basically you're just their mentor, there to guide them. And you stay with them long term throughout their life so that they have a positive role model to kind of help them. And then there's the other part of the program where you are basically just you're a court-appointed advocate for that child in care. And so your sole purpose, at a minimum, you meet with that child once a month, and you get to know them. You talk to them. You're not the caseworker. You're not the attorney. You're not the law guardians or anybody else. That's, you're there for that child. Get to know them. Get to know their families and figure out, what does that child want? That sometimes, and as a child myself that was in the foster care system, I understand this. I get this. Because a lot of times you have all these people working for you, but nobody's actually really talking to the child about what they want. And so that's my job, is basically to advocate on their behalf. And if I have to testify in court, I testify in court. But basically, I keep, a written record of the children or the child, whoever I'm in charge of for that case, and basically advocate for their needs and what they want and what's best for them.
Have you got to do it yet?
I've not gone to court or anything like that, but I've visited with my children, and then I have to log all my stuff and so when it does go to their, I think depending on the case, they go up, I think it's every 6 months, or if the parental rights have been terminated or not. There's a lot of it that I don't understand, because it's a lot above my head. But I have not gone and testified in court or anything like that yet. Yeah. But the reports that I write, those are used. So they take all that information from all the different entities, and they use that as one big picture, basically. So you can paint a whole picture for the child in that case, and that goes in front of the court.
Nice. Sweet. So, and then you're working on your Bachelor's of Science in Education?
Yep, elementary education.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom, and she's got, I think it's like a bachelor's in something, and then she's got a master's in educational leadership.
Oh, wow.
And then
that's
a
awesome.
master's in music. And then she started working on her PhD,
Wow.
I think, in educational leadership.
Yeah.
She was an employee at Florida State for a while. And then, so yeah, education is kind of like I grew up with a teacher, or with a mom that was a teacher, and are you doing it because you want to become a teacher? Is that what you're doing, or?
So it's absolutely wild, and like you, throughout my entire life, you could have asked me, "Do you want to be a teacher? Do you have any aspiration?" No.
Yeah.
No. But what gets me in a position to be that person for that child? What allows me the opportunities, or that maximizes the potential for me to get in touch with a child that might need some guidance or might need some inspiration?
Yeah.
And so that is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to be, and so, but now that I'm going through the program, like, oh my gosh, this is fun to talk to kids, and I'm enthusiastic, getting them to learn, and through the lens of my little boy too. It also, I have a whole new understanding of like children and the way their brains work, and so it's fun.
Yeah, teaching is definitely, it's one of those things where I think it's more of a ministry than anything else, because it's like the pay isn't that well, and then but I think elementary is probably, here I am talking like I think I know, but I think that I would, if I were going to be a teacher, I think elementary is probably the
least.
Well, it's like you start teaching teenagers and they think they know something.
Yeah, it's a different animal. If I wasn't going to do elementary education, I would probably go to high school. For some reason, the middle schoolers are just they're awkward. They don't,
Yeah, teenagers. Like I said, it's when you, what is it, 11, 12? That's when you start to think that you know something.
Yeah.
And then you think that everybody else should respect you for the fact that you know something and you've only been on the earth for 5 years.
Like, oh, that's cute. Since retiring, I've tried to just get really involved in my community. So I think you mentioned I was a member of the 2 garden clubs. So
I was going to kind of hit on that, but I was like, I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so what does the Lynn Haven Garden Club even do? Because we live here in Lynn Haven, or we do, I know that Nia had told me, I think it was having like a campaign event or something like that. And she was like, oh yeah, you were over there handing out
plant sale.
And I was like, okay, what is that? What does the garden club
Retired
do?
Army First Sergeant hands out plants. Like, what is that? Like, how? So the Lynn Haven Garden Club, because I'm a member of 2, I'm also a member of the Chipley Garden Club, but our goal is to promote an interest in gardening, a education on wildlife, plants, native plants. We do area beautification, so we do a lot of community outreach and a lot of community projects. And so every month we meet, and we either have like some kind of speaker come in and teach us about something, whether it's like pollinators or pruning shrubs, I don't know, whatever, all kinds of different things. But we also do events where we raise money, and it all goes back into the community, which is pretty cool.
Okay.
All of our money goes back into the community.
So when you say all the money goes back into the community, how do you explain that?
So we have different organizations that so it's a voting club, right? So you have to vote on, where you're going to send your funds. But right now there's 4 different places. So there's a couple different animal shelters that we support. We also support the 4-H program, and I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, 4-H is great for kids.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Especially because I had several friends that went to like the 4-H, like summer camps and stuff like that. I think that was the I can't remember where it is. It's in Alabama or something like that.
Okay.
So I know that they're big, and then of course, community and being a good steward is kind of like their big thing. But no, that's great programs. Now I just didn't know if like the garden club was like specific to beautification within the city limits or anything like that. If that's where some of the money goes to, or
it's really just kind of what we decide it's going to go to, but it's all of our proceeds. When we do our plant sales, all that money goes back into the community.
How often do you guys have plant sales?
Biannually, so once in the spring and once in the fall.
Nice.
We have one coming up October 12th, I believe it is. So come by the Roberts Hall Community Center and come buy some plants. Have your wife come buy some plants.
Well, we need to get our garden started out here anyway with the landscaping and stuff like that. So we might actually go through with that.
Yeah. Oh, and then one last thing I do also in the community, I volunteered for several months working with Girls Inc., help basically overhaul their inventory and all that, and was working with different programs that they had. I'm not doing that currently right now. I'm kind of taking some time off to focus on some other things, but I was helping out with that. And that's another mentoring program for young girls in the community.
I knew Girls Inc. was huge when I was growing up. But I knew a lot of people that were involved with that. I still actually know a couple of people that are involved with Girls Inc. and the Boys and Girls Club and things of that nature.
Great.
As well. Yep. Sweet. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
I had a
Thank
good
you
time.
for having me.
Yeah.